I helped write and pass the Affordable Care Act. I fought to strengthen and modernize Medicare.
You voted against a ban on partial birth abortion. Why?
We may not always agree on where to go, but I think we can find some common ground.
President Biden's pick for health secretary facing an uphill battle as conservatives oppose his confirmation.
Critics say Javier Becerra is an extremist with a far-left agenda who isn't qualified for the health department. Tennessee Senator Bill Hagerty, one of many lawmakers asking Biden to withdraw the nomination, he joins us now. Senator, thanks for being here. Before we get into this, let's go over Becerra's some of his far-left decisions. Supports Medicare for all, sued President Trump at least 107 times as California AG, has controversial opinions on abortion, said illegal immigration should be decriminalized, and visited Fidel Castro in the 1990s. Oh, and by the way, he has no health care experience. Senator, why did Biden think he's the best person for the job?
You know, at a time when we're facing a pandemic here in America, when Americans have serious personal health care needs, and Biden is calling for unity in his inaugural address. This is absolutely the wrong direction to go. He's taken an abject partisan, someone with zero healthcare experience, someone that does not have the ability to mount the type of pandemic response we need right now, and a person who has beliefs that are contrary to so many Americans. He would take away the private health care of 160 million Americans, and push us into a Medicare for all type of system. He sued the Little Sisters of the Poor. This person is an abject partisan and not fit to run HHS.
Okay, so critics will say, though, that some of you don't necessarily like or agree with his stances on certain issues, so that's why you're coming out citing lack of experience in health care. What do you say to that argument?
Well, I think it's completely legitimate when we don't agree with his positions as well as his lack of experience. It just makes it even worse and all the more damning. He's taking positions that are contrary certainly to the citizens of Tennessee whom I represent. And we're at a point in time where we really need to be focused on this pandemic, getting shots in people's arm, getting our kids back to school, getting our parents back to work, not harping on radical partisan politics at a time like this.
Yeah, the retort often is, well, Alex Azar wasn't a doctor. Well, the retort to that is he was a pretty big bigwig in the pharmaceutical industry, which, as you know, is so much of medicine. I want to get your thoughts on this. You are pressing Joe Biden on the Remain in Mexico rollback, warning it will endanger communities. We know this is going to really stretch border communities and their resources to the max. But you say it's also going to really hurt towns, let's say, in the middle of the country, middle America. Why?
Well, you think about it. My home state of Tennessee, we've got 30,000 migrants at the border right now. That's more than the population of Bristol, Tennessee. It's going to be easier now to get across the border from Mexico into the United States than it is to get a beer at a honky-tonk in downtown Nashville. They're inviting these immigrants to come in. We're going to see a tremendous increase in drug trafficking. We're going to see an increase in human trafficking, and we're going to see these people caught and released into our communities here in the United States. How are they going to ensure that these people get to their hearings? How are they going to test them? Are they going to inoculate them? Are they going to give them work permits? There's so many unanswered questions.
All right, so let's talk about part of President Biden's immigration plan is to spend money, to give money to Central America. We can go ahead and pull up on the screen here the $4 billion plan to address migration from Central America. This includes increasing assistance to El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras, establishing processing centers to register for refugee resettlement, reinstitutes the Central American Minors Program to reunite children with U.S. relatives, creates a program to unite families with approved family sponsorship petitions. What is your reaction to this?
My reaction to that is that he's created this enormous invitation to come to America at a time when he's sending money to these countries that probably will very well misuse it. They've not done a good job in the past with those funds. I doubt those funds will get to the intended sources. Instead, that will just enrich governments there. At the same time, he's got an open border policy here that's going to be a gross invitation to come into our country at a time when we're trying to fight a pandemic. We've got over 10 million Americans out of work right now. Yeah. These people are going to come across the border and make it harder for them to get back into the economy.
Well, his administration says they're planning to spend this money to reduce endemic corruption, violence, and poverty in the region there. Number one, do you think that's going to happen? Number two, how is that going to then benefit us?
Well, the first point they raise is endemic corruption. You're going to give them money. How are you going to make sure that that money is well spent? How are you going to make certain that corruption doesn't invade and divert those funds right away? I think the best policy would be to maintain the diplomatic success that we had with the migrant protection protocols. From the point that we implemented them in May of 2019 till today, we've reduced illegal immigration by 75%. That's made our nation safer. It stopped drug trafficking. It stopped the import of humans that are being abused, and it's allowed us to have a much more rational policy. When these people get in, only 1.5% of them actually qualify for asylum who are claiming it. That means over 98% of the people that arrive here are going to ultimately fail. How are we going to ensure that they're deported? The Biden administration hasn't answered me on that. Are we going to ensure that they're tested for coronavirus? Are we going to vaccinate them before our own citizens? And are we going to give them work permits to compete against Americans right here in America at a time we're trying to work our way through one of the deepest recessions we've encountered?
A lot of questions there, certainly.
Yeah, Senator Bill Hagerty, come back and visit us again. We really appreciate your insight this morning.